I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Hold on. Detroit Lions. Can you believe it?
Are
Can
you
you
ready for
believe
some
it?
football?
Detroit, 1957 was the last time we were in this position. I remember exactly where I was. I was not even a tear in my mother's eyes. It is amazing. I actually had a client get on the a call yesterday with a San Francisco sweatshirt on. It was completely distressing. I almost couldn't do the job. But yeah, can you believe it?
Okay. I haven't rooted for Detroit since Barry
Uh,
Sanders, and that's the only time I ever rooted for Detroit. But I have been, Paul, a San Francisco 49ers fan.
well, once again, Tracy, you and I are on the complete opposite sides.
Yes.
If I would have known this about you, I wouldn't even gotten on the call today. I'm thoroughly disheveled.
So I not because I was a Steve Young, I was a Joe Montana fan. Joe Montana, Jerry
Oh,
Rice, Ronnie Lott. I mean, now I did not like it that in 1988 they beat the Bengals but Joe Montana just took it to the house. But okay, Paul. So this goes along really well with what we want to talk about today, and so I'm not rooting for Detroit, but you might be able to convince me.
I, I,
What would you have to do to convince me to sell me on rooting for Detroit?
well, Tracy, I'll just have to say you really should be cheering for Detroit. You really want them to eat San Francisco up because they're coming after the Christians next if they don't win.
Okay, okay, that's we already went to faith. Okay, and 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 the Lions. He is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So I mean, the
There you
Lion
go.
speaks of the Savior. So okay, I get all those things, and a 49er is not found in the Bible at all. So I get that. So Paul, talking about the importance of sales, why is it that how is it that everyone is in it, but very few say that they're great at it or they like it? A lot of people on my from my point of view, they're like, I suck at sales, and but like everybody's in it, or I'm not a sales guy, I'm not a sales lady, and yet that may not be the case.
Yeah, I think there's a misnomer out there that believes that sales is a gene, right? He's got the gene.
Mm,
He's got the gift of gab. He's got this. He's got that. And it's really it's well, football is a great example. If I want to go and play in the Super Bowl, I can't walk into Vegas next week or in 3 weeks and get on the field. Football players train 6 days a week to play 1 2 hour game every week.
yeah, right.
And the guys who are great at sales, the guys who are great at sales, they train. They train,
Mm,
they practice, they understand their market, they study. If you think about the market, and since we're using the football metaphor, I, you're studying the competition. What's the competition's play?
mm,
How do they play? How am I going to shore up against that? How am I going to play a great offense? How am I going to play a good defense? How am
mhm.
I going to sack their quarterback and get the football across the goal line? That's sales.
Mhm.
It's sales in every
Yeah.
way, shape, or form. And the biggest thing that is missing across the board, I would say 90%. Don't quote me on it, but I'm going to say 90% of the companies that struggle with sales have zero training, zero
Ah,
practice,
yes.
zero.
Totally agree.
So
Totally agree. Totally agree. So when you're painting this picture of this football analogy, and I'm thinking like sales, like there's objections, like like hey, you can get like if the ball is the sale, and we want to get this ball to the close, to the end zone to close this thing out, like they're putting up a fight constantly, Like what is the objection? What's the complaint and so forth? let's do this.
All
What is
right, all right, all
uh,
right, all right. I got to go here because we're talking football, and
okay?
you
Let's
know
roll.
everybody talks about the quarterbacks, right? It's everybody talks about quarterbacks, running backs, all these guys who handle and carry the ball. But the most important positions on the team are in your offense and defensive lines, right?
Mm,
So what you're
yeah.
talking about right now is the defensive line, right? That's the customer.
Mhm.
That's the customer's
Yep.
defenses. That's um, the gatekeeper. She's, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Good.
All right, go on with your point.
Okay. All right. So the objection. Okay. So we've got this line of defense. What do you think is like if there was a number one? So I think it's a given. Everyone believes that sales are important. I mean, like I've heard it said, money makes the world go round, but somebody's got to be there for that exchange. Somebody has to make that exchange happen. And so in the like there's an objection to a sale. What's the top? What do you find is the top objection that you get?
Well, so I don't specifically want to talk about me as far as the top objection I get. The real question is industry specific. What are you trying to sell? And what's the
Mm,
over? I mean, everybody gets the I don't have time. That's not an objection. That's just
yeah, that's a
a
complaint.
statement. That's just a complaint, right? So at the end of the day, when you start getting into real objections, objections come from a couple of different places. Number one, they're not sold on the solution that you're selling to fit their problem. They're trying to align the value with the price, right?
Mm,
Am I getting
yeah.
more value than I'm paying for? Am I getting less value than I'm paying for? Um, there's fear. Fear is probably the number one driver of objections. Fear it's not going to work. Fear they're not going to use it. Fear that it's going to just sit in the, like my kids' jet skis. When I bought them, I had the fear that they were going to sit in the garage and not get used. And guess what? They sat in the garage and didn't get used. So I wasted 30 grand on jet skis that I've got to sell because they didn't get used the whole time. So it that and a lot of fear comes from previous experiences, right? So
Mm,
I bought
yep.
something previously like this. I spent too much money. I found out I could have got less. It didn't get used. The team didn't use it. Any of those. So that's from previous. So when we talk about objections, we deal with those in kind of a discovery phase of the deal. We ask the right questions to make sure we're bringing that stuff out of the client
Hmm.
so that we can deal with it. Ultimately, I mean, what do you think?
A
What's your
thought,
perspective?
yeah, a thought just came to my mind when you were talking about the fear and talked about past experiences. I was just thinking like there are people like that, like they're every like you said it before. Everybody's in sales, but like there's some people that are like, oh, I don't want to be a sales guy because they're this, they're that, they're whatever, and or if they have to sell, well, I just feel uncomfortable, just doing this based on a bad experience that they had. I mean, like if you ever walked out in the back pasture and a snake, you saw a snake. Now every pasture has a snake in it. And maybe that's true, but the likelihood of you coming across a snake every time you go into the woods is relatively slim. Now, if it isn't, you don't want to be doing this. But and do you think
But
it covers? I mean, is that why some people like as far as becoming, to your point about training and sales, because of the bad experience, they just don't want to. They want to try to avoid it.
Well, I think a couple of things. I think number one, everybody is in sales in one way, shape, or form. If you're in a corporation and you're a project manager, you've got to sell changes to your project. Sales ultimately, at its most core thing, is bringing someone to your point of view. It's a convincing argument
Mm,
for their benefit, but it truly is the art of um, of bringing someone to your point of view for their benefit because you have a product or service that's going to solve a problem that they have. So ultimately, all the negativity around sales over the past 1,000 years is all BS. It's bullshit. Okay. Every person in every position has to sell at some point in time.
Yeah.
Bringing that forward to your point about this, I like the snakes in the field. That's great. It's a beautiful metaphor. The key is to realize and then imagine that there are snakes in every field. Mm-hmm. Not to avoid the fields that there are snakes in. So this goes back to the objection handling. If the snake is the objection in your metaphor, then I want to be prepared to deal with the snake, and I want to assume it's in every field, mm-hmm. so that I know how I'm going to contend with said snake. Mm-hmm. Am I going to kill the snake? Am I going to tie the snake up? Am I going to lasso the snake and move it to the side? Am I going to walk around the snake? Or, how am I going to deal with that objection? And I'm going to practice that, right? I'm going to go train, right? I'm going to go doing my snake avoiding training. And then when I walk into the field and I see the snake, it's muscle memory at that point. Now I'm playing back in the Super Bowl. I've got all this muscle memory because I'm fully trained, and all those snakes, on the gridiron.
There's something I love that idea, how you brought that field for. I mean, I was just thinking, how many fields have I avoided because the thought that there's going to be a snake in there, and all that is it's just. Maybe I'm afraid of a snake when a snake in and of itself, not all snakes are deadly or poisonous or whatever, just getting understanding, hey, like to your point about an objection or a complaint. That snake, it is a reptile, but it's not an objective. It's not an objection. It's not a poisonous reptile. It's not, but it's just a complaint. It's just, it's a snake. It slithers. It's whatever. I mean, so it's just a complaint though, because it's not poisonous.
Well,
why be afraid of a comment that somebody makes?
Yeah, and I think an objection, it seems so negative, but it's not. An objection is just an ask for more information. I mean, we're afraid of things because we're afraid to ask the next question. Objection comes up. The first question is, hey, well, if you do, I mean, you say, hey, I get where you're coming from. Why? That's the next question is why. Now you go into root cause analysis, find out why that objection is coming up. Have you experienced this before? What happened? Let's talk about this. And providing assurances that situation is not going to happen, or we can overcome that by doing this. That is the thing. Overcoming an objection is not overcoming a person's opinion. It is working with them to resolve the issue. Okay? That's where the masters and the NFL players and the high school players are separated. Okay, it is the nuances of the game, and at the highest levels, we start to realize that an objection is just a request for information and a request to help resolve an issue with the deal as it sits.
Okay, I just had this image. I'm going to go back to your Detroit Lions. I've got to go. The reason why is because I've just been a huge fan of Barry Sanders, and I love. There's nobody that has highlight reels like he has. Nobody.
Absolutely.
I mean, like a lot of them are just straight. So, okay, when you're thinking about for me, when I first was introduced to sales, what was daunting to me is like when I'd meet that line of defense, and I hit them, the deal's done. Yeah. And it's just like I crumble because they objected to something that I was saying that I think would actually serve them. So when Barry Sanders, he'd meet the line, you think the play's over, whoop, 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 and he's making some kind of move. So he'd backpedal, go around the quarterback to the other side and try that way.
Yeah.
meet some line of defense, some objection, or some guy trying to tackle him. He, stumble out of three guys, twist and turn, and there he goes. He's off to the races, crossing the touchdown, and the sale is closed. So I think about that, like
Yeah.
most of those
So
people are not trained in overcoming those objections. It is going to be the first objection shuts us down, like, and we're done.
yeah, it's the second effort, right? It's the second
Mm-hmm.
effort. I mean, you talk about Barry Sanders and we talk about training, we talk about objections. Look at the size of Barry Sanders' quads when
Yeah,
he was playing. I mean, he had quads like freaking,
huge,
and
huge.
because he knew the objection was a 350-pound linebacker, called the refrigerator in Chicago, and he
Oh
knew
yeah,
that that was the
Barry.
objection. So
Yeah,
Barry needed to be able to outrun and be able to give that second effort. Barry could run with four guys attached to his back.
yeah.
And it was a testament to the strength of that gentleman's legs. So yeah, it's the second effort, but it's also understanding. I don't want to mix metaphors too much, but it's understanding what the objection is, taking it back to the practice field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working on it. And I'm going to bring this forward. And, it's kind of interesting that you're not a Lions fan because I know that you're a pastor, and I know that you and that you're always fighting for the guy, the underdog, and who has been the biggest
Yeah,
underdog in the NFL for the last 57 years. I mean,
truth, truth.
it's to that point. But I'm going to bring this back forward to Goff, right? Goff's biggest
Okay.
problem this year, his objection has been in the situation where he's under high amount of pressure and about to get sacked. He tries to get rid of the ball in very, very poor conditions. So he's thrown a lot of
Mm.
interceptions this year. And one of the things I said a couple of weeks ago, I said, if the Lions are going to carry forward, Goff is going to have to learn to hold on the ball and take the sack.
Mm.
Okay. And in the last game, what did Goff do? He
Mm.
held onto the ball and he took the sacks.
Mm.
And therefore he did not give up the turnovers that they've given up a lot this year. So he took the objection, and it took a little while to get in there, but he finally took the objection. He took a look at the objection and he figured out how to overcome it, practiced on that, and it became muscle memory. And then when he went into the game last week, he got in that high pressure situation, knew he was going to get sacked, and he tucked around the ball and hit the ground. And
Mm.
that's exactly
But
what he
came back
needed to
for
do.
the next play.
And
But
came
came back.
back for the next play and went on to score a touchdown.
So,
So
so Paul, I love that. That's okay. So what I was thinking on that is since we're on the subject of overcoming objections, sometimes the product that you have, like the facts are not there. So you're doing the fact finding, and the wrong play. All it describes is I had him on the wrong product. Like
could
that
be.
was not the product. Yeah, so that could be like one of the objections. I was just on a sales call. A guy called me up yesterday wanting to get me like 6 rows closer to the front on an event that's coming up, and I'm like, dude, not enough value for me. I'm like, he had me on the wrong. Like it was not, the value wasn't seen clearly, so I was objecting to the sale because there wasn't enough value in having 6 rows closer, and that's not why I'm at the event in the first place. So it was actually the wrong product. And instead of taking the sack, he went ahead and tried to make a play out of it, and I just shut him down. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I'll see you at the event, and that's how we closed it. He wasn't able to close me because he had me on the wrong product,
It,
and there wasn't enough value.
well, and I would further that by saying he didn't realize that he had you on the right product, and he tried to push past his abilities.
Yeah,
Right.
it was. He thought the objection was price, and
Yeah.
it wasn't the price.
Well,
It was the value. I mean, like where I was sitting, I'm very, very happy with where I'm sitting,
so did
and
he?
I'm taking.
So did he ask you like questions like why is the event important to you, and what do
No.
you plan on getting out of the event? So in his discovery, he didn't get enough information. He had already closed you on the ticket, and if he wanted to upsell you, he needed to ask a couple more questions. He would have needed to go, okay, so thank you for buying the ticket. That's great. Just what do you expect to get out of what's the biggest thing that you want to get out of the event? If I'm going to upsell you, I need to find a little more information.
What's my dominant buying motive?
Yeah, perfect. And so he needed to ask you a couple more questions and say, hey, Tracy, thanks for buying the ticket. This was great. Just curious, what's your expectations? What do you want to get out of the event now that you bought the ticket? And if you would say, oh, I want to be, like right there because I want the presenter to see me.
I want to be in the room with greatness.
I want to be in the room with greatness, whatever. Then he would have said, all right, I can get you in the room with greatness. I just, for $2,000 extra, I can get you front row tickets with a back with the, a back seat to the after party, for an extra $2,000. And you would have been like, yeah, 2,000 is perfect because I'm going to get that value. But if you would have said, you know what, I'm there just to get some of the basic information I want to understand and I want to apply it to what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. He would have known, okay, I don't have anything to work with here to move you to the next level. I need to close down. But that's the difference between what people perceive as a high pressure salesperson and a professional salesperson. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the power of the questions that you asked that I'll use the word that provide you gravity to your prospect that brings them closer to you as opposed to high pressure, which actually pushes them away. Right.
Yeah. And the pressure, what I've seen, like when done correctly, I appreciated the pressure. Like I'm not against pressure. But if you're going to pressure me into the wrong product, I interpret that as manipulation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have a better argument than my mind can come up right now. And this is what I want to do. Done. Hang up. I want to get out of that conversation because I don't have enough material. You're just stronger in the argument than I am, but it's still not the product I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's pushed me across the I love the play when it's first and goal. Right? First and goal, we're inches away, and it's like this big push. The whole team pushes across the goal to pressure me into something that I know I need, that I know I want, that I know is going to help me. I appreciate that because I needed the push. I needed the help. But to push me into something that is not the product I need, is not because you didn't ask those qualifying questions. Yeah, I don't. That's where the high pressure comes from, I think.
Yeah, it feels like a violation, right? It's like
that's a great word.
It's a violation, and that's the real difference between because if you do this well, you don't get the post-purchase depression that comes from most clients. You got 3 days to get out of the contract. You don't want them calling you back in 2 days and going, you pressured me, man. It's ultimately it comes from three beliefs: a belief in yourself, a belief in the product, and a belief in your company. At the end of the day, great sales is about it's about helping someone to do something that's good for them, and that you believe that, right? That you're actually there to do that. And that's that. If you're out there just pushing product, I feel bad for you because it's hard to. I would bet it's hard to sleep at night.
Yeah. And that probably is what gives sales the bad rap. That they've pushed too many people into the wrong product.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you think? What's your perspective?
So my perspective on being manipulated is I don't think there's an honorable way to manipulate anyone in any situation. But if I know that the value you're going to get from this, and I've earned a little bit of credibility. I think one of the things that is so tough for some salespeople is when they haven't established any rapport first. Like, and I define rapport as I know you, I like you, I trust you. And so, like you said, the three, and I've never heard that before. So thank you for that. Like their belief in me, their belief in the product, and their belief in my company. And so, like, those three have to be there. And I think sometimes if I've ever been manipulated, it's because I didn't trust the sales guy because he didn't spend enough time, warming me up to him. And I think that the best salespeople, they had it was like seamless. It was fluid. It was just like, hey, tell me about yourself. And whether it was a car or whatever it is, when they really made me feel like they cared, that they cared about me. Like, okay, I think we have something that work. Come with me. What do you think? Like when they heard my story and listened, and maybe one of the companions to the greatest sales is they got to go through some coaching and listening tactics, like what we do for a living as we're coaches, sitting in that space, asking the curiosity-based questions and so forth to find out, oh, okay, now it's coming through clearly. I think I know what'll work for you. Would you like some help with that? Yeah, absolutely. And then leading them in to where at the end of it, they feel like I made the
Yeah, absolutely. So, so where do we go with this? What does this mean for the people listening today?
So so one takeaway that I would think of is we're on the subject of manipulation in sales. Really treating the buyer as if they were a human being, that they had needs, and finding out what those problems are and solving that problem for them with the product or the service that you have. And if you don't have that product or service, then you don't have that product or service. I mean, like just to put them in something just to make a sale is maybe you could manipulate them into the sale, but it's a one and done. So I think what I'm thinking of is just learning, what does the potential buyer, what do they need from me? What do they need that I can provide? And then satisfying that. So if I was in sales and I was thinking about like how tough it is getting across the finish line, Barry Sanders, Detroit Lions, even San Francisco, what do they need as a team to just advance the ball 5 more yards, 3 more yards, 7 more yards, 10 more yards? We're not looking at a touchdown on this one. And I don't know, like some plays, coming back to the football analogy, how many plays does it take to get to the end zone? How many first downs will a team have? And like, is every time they get to the line, it can't be a Hail Mary. Every time they get to the line can't be, we're shooting for the end zone on this play. It may just be, hey, we're running the ball because we've thrown it 2 plays in a row. We're going to run the ball now, and we're just going to gain 2 yards. So how can I gain just a little bit more ground? And I look at sales as, in my personal opinion, as more of a longer game. I want to make a sale every day, but I'm looking in like, hey, I made a connection. That connection, now I have a lead. That lead turned into an appointment. The appointment may or may not get sold, but I want to keep the door open. What are your thoughts?
Well, just to bring the metaphor to whole, you're talking about trial closes and moving them along the sales process. So I think, again, this doesn't fit for everything. So I want to be careful about this. I mean, this isn't, selling convenience store candy bars. This is more into selling products or services that do solve specific problems that come in, and it does depend on the product. And if you're selling a training or a coaching, training might be, you bring them through your 6 or 7 step sales process all on one phone call. We're selling you know, let's say a backup generator for a nuclear power plant. All right. This is going to have a discovery and design phase that carries that a little deeper. The interesting thing is that the steps are generally the same. It's just what's inside those steps is deeper. So like the difference between selling coaching and the generator's got a discovery phase that includes technical discovery, right? What are the outcomes and the power needs and the length of those power needs on the backup and the average time. Where the training, the sales coaching that you sell, or the 360s that you sell, it's time to revenue. How do we increase the revenue by 30-40%? And what steps do I need to discover about your company that is going to show me the gaps in your process to get there? And that's a relationship build. But you'll notice that all of that's wrapped around discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Without good discovery, you can't move the ball forward. Okay. Because what happens is this transcendence from them not knowing you to a belief that you will solve the problem that you're there to solve. That's the move, right? That's the real move. It is not knowing you to believing in you.
Yeah.
And we're assuming that they know that you're reputable, and you are reputable. So let's just make those assumptions, and then you've got to move them from zero to believing that you can solve a problem that's either hurting them or stifling them from growing. One of the two. So
one of our viewers had talked about the importance of active listening in sales, and on that idea of the discovery for the salesperson is asking the powerful questions like you already suggested, but sitting in that state of actively listening and relating. Okay, this is what I'm hearing, repeating it back to them. Have I heard you right? That kind of coaching aspect of that. What are some ideas about, because we already understand listening is it's vital in every relationship and every sales aspect. When you really get to hear somebody, what they're saying, what they're not saying, to where we make sure that we're getting them on that. What are some tips that you found for active listening to, especially in the area of sales? Since we're all in it, what are some components of active listening that could benefit somebody that's watching this right now and they're saying, I already know listening is important. How can I do it better? How can I go deeper?
Well, I think one of the deepest ways to actively listening is not only listening to the problems, but listening to the words they use to describe them. Right? Those are extremely important, especially in that presentation mode, because you have to align the words that they use with the words that you use in the solution. So the equal sign happens, right? What you're saying equals what they're hearing. Okay. Yeah. So to get to that point in that questioning and discovery portion, that you need to ask the right questions, make sure you tree them down. And I can't talk enough about root cause analysis. Part of active listening, as the person has asked, is to really identify the root cause of their problem, right? Mm-hmm. And this goes to your point about product fit, right? If you just get the surface of the problems, you can't be sure that your solution is going to fix it if you don't understand the root cause of those problems.
Yeah. So, yeah. And go ahead.
No, go ahead. Fire away.
I was just thinking, like, if you really are actively listening, you may think that they came in for this, but when you're actively listening, what they really want is this.
Yeah.
So how you move them, kind of like Grant says, move them up a model. How do you move them up a model? Listen, you can get this right here. This is perfect. It has everything you said you need. But is it really what you want? Because you said these words right over here. For this little bit more, you can have everything that you need plus what you want. But it's just
I'm going to beat you up right now. I'm just going to beat you because you're interchanging two really important words: want and need. That is the effect of root cause analysis. You're taking them from what they want to what they need. And those words are very important because wants don't specifically cover or fix problems. They think they want X, but what they really need is Y to address those problems. That's where active listening really comes in. So I don't like those two words being interchanged because they mean very different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, so I was saying, like, they came in and like, so maybe they shared with me what they need, but by what prompted it in my head was when you said, when you're listening to the words they chose,
Yeah.
like, this has everything they need. But I know this, I buy what I want. Like, I'll pay more money for what I want. I mean, like, I've got all kinds of things that I want in my house that are not, like, it's satisfying, like, and I don't want to use them interchangeably, but it's not really, do I actually need this? No, but I wanted it.
Well, so here's the thing is you have to tie need to the wanted outcomes. Okay. Here's what you need to get to your wanted outcomes. They come in with wants, and you have to tie those wants to outcomes. Here's what you need to fulfill those wants. Okay, they're not interchangeable. One precedes the other. Okay, you're going to come in. You want outcomes. You want your lawn to be beautiful, right? You want a beautiful eye candy lawn. Well, here's what you need to do it. You need a shovel. You need some trees. You need these flowers. You need this grass seed, and you need this. Now, if you let me get you all this that you need, so you can have what you want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was going through in my mind. I was going through a time here recently where, well, I say recently. Recently to me is like 2 years ago. But I walked onto a car lot and I said. Like the lady, I've worked with her before. She's like, "Hey, so Tracy, why are you here today?" Well, I think I need a car. So I expressed the need was I need a vehicle. I need transportation. Okay, so what are you looking for? I don't really know what I want. Right. So I knew I need a car, but I don't know what I want because I don't know what my options are. And so she had to go into this fact finding of like, okay, so the car that you have, what describes the needs? Like, what are the needs of the car? And like, well, we have this. And like, then she started to explore all the options that they had. And like, have you ever come to that place where you're like, and by the way, it wasn't until I talked to you, I knew, forget all of that. I know what I want. I know what I want. You got it parked in your driveway. I know what I want. And so like, I was willing to say, you know what? I'm willing to keep what I have because I truly know what I want. And so like there was no sale made on that because in talking to her, like I could get this and it satisfies all the needs, but it doesn't satisfy that want. And the biggest money that I've ever spent was on what I wanted. I mean, like I need companionship, but I wanted April. And she provided what I needed, but plus more. So like, and by the way, guys, you're like, what car is he talking about? It's a Jeep Rubicon. It's beautiful. Now Paul's got one that's limited edition and everything, and I've got Jeep Envy and everything. But like when I talked to you about that, you created this dynamic in my heart that I was like, no, forget everything else. I know what I want. I'm going to just keep what I have until I can get what I want. Do I need a Jeep? No, I don't need it. I need transportation. Well, and I've already got it.
Yeah. And again, I just kind of want to bring that back around, and I can use the Jeep as the perfect example because what I want is to be able to go to places no one else can go, to see things no one else can see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I want. What?
Ah,
Okay,
yeah.
so
Okay. I'm with you.
it's tied to an outcome.
Yes.
The want
Okay.
is tied to an
You're right.
outcome. If you're doing discovery properly, you
Yeah.
are figuring out. This is where you're kind of working it. You're trying to help the customer tie the want to an outcome,
Yeah.
and then
Beautiful. Yeah.
you
You
provide
just
what
did.
they need to get there. Right?
Yeah. You
Okay.
just did. I'm thinking the top down, wind blowing through my hair, going where I want to go, and have. I mean, like the Jeep provides the outcome. It's sporty. I'm not an old man. It's like I'm not an old man car.
Right.
Like I still like to have fun. I can go off road if I wanted to. Put this thing in four wheel. I can put mud on it and stuff like that. Take the doors off. I love the options. So
So
you're so right. Yeah,
so,
tying
so
it to an outcome.
it's great, and I have the perfect example because I also wanted at a time I wanted to have a car that showed I was affluent, right? I wanted, that, so I bought a Land Rover, okay,
Mhm.
and but I wanted my core want was to be able to go places. Well, the first time I took the Land Rover, it got stuck in a place that the Jeep would have never gotten stuck in. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, I've got all this luxury, but it's relatively useless off road. Okay,
Mhm.
so I went. After a couple of machinations, I've had like 4, 5, 6 Rubicons. After a couple of machinations with other cars, and then the Jeep came out with basically now it's a luxury car. Now it's got both. Now I got everything I want. Okay,
Mhm.
and I can still get to places I really want to go. We were up in way up north chasing waterfalls 2 weeks ago, and to get to some of these waterfalls, we had to go through some pretty rough stuff to get up to the waterfalls. But we got up there because my wife doesn't like to be muddy out hiking through the woods, but she likes to see the stuff. So how do I get her to those places without her getting dirty? I know what I
Ah.
need to get everybody in my family what they want. Okay.
So, so if I'm selling you on that, finding out your basic want is I want to get my family there and my wife not get muddy on the way, but it has to be. But I understand mud is part of the course. In order to get there, what's going to get me there? That's what I want.
Yeah. What's gonna
Yes.
the want is the outcome. The want is the outcome. Then you get to the product specific. What product? What service can I get you? What service can I provide you that's going to get you what you want? Separating those two words and it's really tough for people to understand that want and need are two different things, and not in the way that you think they're different. Want is the outcome. Need is
Yeah.
what you need to get there. Not to use the word twice in the same sentence, but does that make sense?
Boom. Man, okay, that's my big takeaway. My big takeaway right there is want is the outcome. And like I need this car to get me to what I really want. What I really want is this lifestyle or this persona or whatever. That's what I really want.
Mhm.
And the car is just pardon the pun, the vehicle that gets me that
That's
to what
correct.
I
So
want.
the need is the vehicle to get you to where you want, right? And that's exactly it. And the art of fulfilling people. I'm not going to say sales
Yeah.
because at the end of the
Okay.
day, what you are there to do is to fulfill people. It is to
Mm-hmm.
take a problem that you're having and provide them a solution, which ultimately fulfills them, right? So the key is getting in your sales process is helping define what the want is, the outcome, and then what you need to get there. And if you have what they need to get to what they want, then you're going to make the sale.
Boom. That was gold right there. You took the entire episode and put it down. The importance of sales could be captured right there. If you have what they need to get them what they want, you're going to be successful in sales.
There you go.
Boom. What's your big takeaway?
I think that is the big takeaway. I can't agree. And the Lions are going to beat the San Francisco next weekend or this coming weekend. So
okay, if they don't, I've got a San Francisco beanie that I'm going to wear just in case.
If they don't, then I have fully identified that I'm going to be an idiot forever because I just said that on screen. So
awesome.
Perfect.
Always great sparring with you.
All right, cool. All right, we'll see everyone next weekend. Thanks for the questions, and we'll see you next time.